I died, with the whole internet calling me a cheater. No one believed I had been framed. No one believed my score had been stolen. And no one believed that the best friend who smiled beside me every day had used a pen to destroy my life. A jade-green fountain pen. That was where everything began. Before the college entrance exam, Tang Mujiao pressed that pen into my hand and wished me luck. She said, "It was a blessing from the temple." She said, "It would help me get a good score." But it was never a lucky charm. It was connected to a synchronization system. Inside the exam room, I pushed myself until my hands went numb, solving question after question. Across the room, Tang Mujiao calmly slept on her desk. In the end, she scored full marks and proudly became the top student admitted to Tsinghua University. As for my exam paper, it looked exactly like hers, down to every comma. I was accused of copying her draft paper. An official report was filed. My exam qualification was cancelled. Netizens flooded my personal account with insults. My parents' noodle cart was smashed. My father clutched his chest and collapsed onto the cold ground. My mother knelt on the street until her skin was scraped raw, begging the crowd to spare our family. But no one listened. Tang Mujiao stole my future, then watched my family fall apart because of her greed. In the end, standing on a wind-whipped ledge, I closed my eyes and sank into the cold water below, carrying an injustice I could never wash clean. The pain tore through my chest like it was still happening. Then, a blinding flash of light swept across my vision. I woke with a start. The old ceiling fan above me creaked as it turned. Chalk dust drifted through the air. When I opened my eyes again, the first thing I saw was the line of bright red words written neatly across the blackboard. 100 days left until the college entrance exam. I had been reborn. My trembling hand gripped the edge of the wooden desk. At that exact moment, a cloyingly sweet perfume rushed into my nose and made my stomach churn with a familiar wave of nausea. Soft hand patted my shoulder. "Sunyu, did you stay up late solving problems again? You should rest a little. If you keep pushing yourself like this, how can your body take it?" That sweet voice sounded beside me. I turned around. Tang Mujiao was smiling gently at me, her large round eyes blinking with apparent concern. She wore a perfectly pressed school uniform, her hair falling to her shoulders, looking pure, innocent, and harmless. Then, she placed a glittering jade-green fountain pen on my desk. I went to the temple and asked for a peace charm. "I saw this pen and thought it was beautiful, so I bought it for you. Use it during your exams. The god of luck will definitely help you get a high score." Her words sounded sweet enough to fool anyone. But as I looked at the pen lying neatly on my notebook, my blood turned cold. In my previous life, I had treated this thing like a treasure. I used it to calculate tens of thousands of problems and to write long argumentative essays. I never imagined that its nibby was the tool she used to steal my mind. Every stroke I wrote would be perfectly copied by the system onto her exam paper. Slowly raised my head and met Tang Mujiao's expectant gaze. I forced down the disgust surging in my stomach and made the corners of my lips curve into a gentle, moved smile. "Thank you, Mujiao. You always worry about me. I will definitely cherish it." I carefully picked up the pen and held it as if it were a priceless object. "Of course. We are best friends," Tang Mujiao said with a radiant smile. But the moment she turned away, I caught a flash of smug mockery in her eyes. The hypocrisy made my stomach turn. Afternoon self-study began. Around me came the rustling of turning pages. The air was so stifling it was hard to breathe. Everyone had their head lowered over practice papers, fighting for a ticket that could change their life through the Gaokao. Tang Mujiao sat across the aisle from me. She spread a stack of exam papers across her desk. But in her hand she held a small mirror and secretly touched up her lipstick. From time to time, Her gaze drifted toward me and fixed on the jade-green pen. I knew exactly what she was waiting for. Calmly, I opened an advanced mathematics workbook. A complicated solid geometry problem appeared before me. In my previous life, whenever I encountered this type of problem, I would immediately draw 3 auxiliary lines, construct a right angle, and find the distance decisively. But now I picked up the lucky pen and wrote out a messy string of formulas. I deliberately drew the projection wrong, applied the wrong theorem, and turned a simple problem into a tangled mess that could never be unraveled. Tang Mujiao craned her neck to look. When she saw me stumbling, crossing things out everywhere, the smile on her lips grew more arrogant. She pushed back her chair, stood up, walked to my side, and judged me with a superior tone. Zenyu, this problem can be solved just by using a coordinate system. You're making it way too complicated. If you keep studying mechanically like this, even if you stay up until morning, you won't score over 100 in math. She tapped her glossy manicured fingernail against my paper. Whispers sounded around us. The study committee representative turned around and clicked her tongue. Zenyu, you should learn from Mujiao. She hardly ever stays up late. But every time we take a mock exam, she scores above 140 in math. That's what people call a study goddess. You're just a bookworm. Another girl chimed in. Exactly. If your ability is limited, don't force it too much. A total score of 700 plus isn't meant for everyone. Tang Mujiao waved her hand, pretending to be modest. Don't say that. Wanya works very hard too. Her method just isn't right yet. If there is anything you don't understand, just ask me. She patted my shoulder. Her eyes filled with pity. I looked at the faces around me joining in, and my heart stayed completely still. In my previous life, this kind of praise had turned Tang Mujiao into an untouchable god in our class. Everyone believed she was a genius who could reach Tsinghua or Peking University without effort. No one knew that what she used to shine was my sweat, my tears, and my future. I nodded and bit my lower lip, pretending to feel ashamed. I understand. I will work harder. I tightened my grip around the pen and let them enjoy themselves. Laugh. All you want. The brighter your smiles are now, the more miserable you will look when the results come out. The bell signaling the end of afternoon classes rang sharply. The classroom quickly emptied. Everyone packed their books and headed for the cafeteria. Tang Mujiao slung her designer backpack over her shoulder and turned to invite me. Zenyu, do you want to go eat hot pot? A new place just opened in front of the school. My treat. You go ahead. I haven't finished this physics paper yet. I'll just eat some bread for now. I politely refused, my eyes still fixed on the paper. Suit yourself. Take your time studying. She curled her lip and walked away. Her delicate figure attracted quite a few looks from the boys in the hallway. Once her back disappeared completely, I was the only person left in the classroom. I immediately threw the jade-green pen into the deepest hidden corner of my desk drawer. Then, I pulled out a cheap plastic ballpoint pen and opened the draft notebook, hidden at the bottom of my bag. The foolish, weak look in my eyes from moments ago vanished completely. In its place was clear, sharp sobriety. There was no time left to waste. I quickly redrew the coordinate axes for the solid geometry problem from earlier. Complicated formulas flowed from the tip of my pen smoothly and precisely. The first citywide mock exam took place in early April. The atmosphere in the classroom was so tense it felt like water could be wrung from the air. The rustling of papers mixed with the urgent tapping of pens as students raced against time. I held the jade-green fountain pen Tang Mujiao had given me and calmly moved it across the mathematics exam paper. For the multiple choice section, I calculated in my head that the correct answer was A. But my hand decisively marked C. When I reached the last 2 written problems, worth 14 points each, I deliberately wrote the derivative formulas wrong, and even drew the spatial coordinate system incorrectly. Under the glossy nib, every line was clumsy, full of erasures and smudges. I knew very clearly that through the synchronization system, everything I wrote, with this pen, would be transmitted directly into Tang Mujiao's subconscious or onto her control panel. Just as I expected, when the end of exam bell rang, Tang Mujiao handed in her paper first with ease. As she passed my desk, she glanced at my ruined draft paper and smirked. That smile lasted only 1/10 of a second, before she skillfully hid it beneath her saintly mask. 2 days later, our homeroom teacher slammed the stack of exam papers onto the teacher's desk. Chalk, dust flew everywhere. He struck the blackboard with his pointer, his stern voice echoing through the classroom. In this exam, some students made remarkable progress, while others declined so badly it is hard to believe. Tang Mujiao scored 142 in mathematics, first in the entire grade. The whole class will applaud and commend her. Applause filled the room. Tang Mujiao stood up, gently brushed a lock of hair behind her shoulder, and smiled modestly. Thank you, teacher. And thank you, everyone. I was only lucky enough to review the right type of problem. As for Gu Wanyu, the teacher's voice suddenly sank. His sharp gaze shot straight toward me. 95. What exactly are you doing? The last 2 questions showed no logical thinking at all. Do you plan to take this score into the college entrance exam? The whole class turned to look at me. Whispers rose. Some eyes held contempt. Some lips curled in mockery. In my previous life, if I had fallen into this situation, I would have buried my face in the desk and cried from shame. But in this life, I only stood quietly and lowered my head in apology. Sorry, teacher. I've been under some pressure lately. So I lost focus. I will work harder. Sat down, my expression perfectly displaying disappointment and weakness. Tang Mujiao immediately leaned over and gently squeezed my hand. Senyu, don't be sad. The teacher made the exam too hard this time. Sometimes you study well but don't perform well. I'll explain the last 2 questions to you tonight. Okay, we're best friends. I won't abandon you, sir. Voice was loud enough for the nearby students to hear. The class monitor, sitting in front, immediately turned around and sighed with admiration. Mujiao really is a goddess. She studies well and she's kind too. Gu Wanyu, you're lucky to have a best friend like her. Look at your score. You're dragging down the class average. Exactly. Without Mujiao tutoring her, she'd probably fall to the worst class already. Another boy added. I pulled my hand back, nodded slightly, and gave a strained smile full of endurance. Thank you. Mujiao. Tang Mujiao turned away in satisfaction. In her heart, she must have been extremely pleased. Believed I had truly reached the limit of my ability, and could not go any further. To see an excellent student like me fall into the mud, then personally play the savior, gave her the greatest satisfaction. She saw me as a stepping stone, a foolish tool meant to set off the halo of her study goddess brilliance. But she had no idea that the real prey in this game was her. System could steal answers, but it could not tell which answers were correct, and which were deadly traps I had laid. The evening bell rang at 10:30. Spring wind still carried a bone-chilling cold. I put on my backpack and walked out of the school gate. The streets were already sparsely populated. Under the flickering street lamp at the intersection, my parents' noodle cart was still lit. Steam rose from the pot of broth and drifted into the freezing night. I stood at a distance and looked at them silently. My father walked with a limp as he picked up chipped plastic bowls one by one and carried them to the washing basin. My mother bent over, her hands swollen from soaking in soapy water as she carefully scrubbed each pair of chopsticks. They had worked hard their entire lives, saving every sweat-soaked coin only to pay my tuition, hoping I could use knowledge to leave this slum. In my previous life, Tang Mujiao personally crushed that small hope. She stole my score and falsely accused me of cheating. As soon as the university entrance authorities announced that my exam results were invalid, the furious crowd rushed over and overturned my family's noodle cart. They threw coins at my parents' faces and cursed them as low-class people who had raised a daughter who stole from others. My father clutched his chest and collapsed amid the broken pieces. My mother knelt on the road until her skin was torn, begging for mercy. That horrifying memory surged back, making my chest ache sharply. I took a deep breath, swallowed the bitterness to the bottom of my heart, and strode toward the noodle cart. Dad, I'm back. The sound of my voice. My mother quickly wiped her hands on her dirty apron. Her deeply wrinkled face lit up with a kind smile. Wanyu, you're back. Hurry and sit down. Mom will cook you a bowl of noodles with a poached egg. You're studying so hard at your age, you need to eat, so you'll have strength. My father stopped what he was doing, came closer, and patted my shoulder. This is rough. Kalao's hand gave me a steady sense of safety. Low mock exam score, doesn't matter, daughter. Your mother and I won't force you to get into Tsinghua or Peking University. Just do your best. Whatever happens is fine, as long as you stay healthy. So, my parents already knew I had scored low. The homeroom teacher must have called home. Even so, they did not blame me with a single word. They only gave me endless love. The corners of my eyes grew hot. A tear nearly fell, but I quickly blinked it away. I held the steaming bowl of noodles and ate heartily. The sweetness of the bone broth mixed with the bitter saltiness in my heart. I looked up at them. My voice gentle but firm. Dad, Mom, don't worry. This Gaokao, I will definitely bring home an admission notice from Tsinghua University. We won't have to sell noodles out in the freezing wind at night anymore. By the time I returned to our cramped rental room of less than 10 square meters, the clock had already struck 11 at night. I locked the door tightly and tossed Tang Mujiao's jade-green fountain pen into the deepest corner of the drawer. Then, I took out a cheap black ballpoint pen I had bought outside the school gate for 2 yuan. On my desk, I spread open the science subject review materials I had secretly bought with my savings. This was my real battlefield. There was no fake innocence and no clumsy, messy, crossed-out writing. Under the dim yellow desk lamp, my mind worked at full speed. Each quantum physics formula, each organic chemistry reaction chain, and each genetics analysis problem was solved by me quickly and precisely, down to the final number. I drew the 3 auxiliary lines for solid geometry decisively. I reasoned through the trajectory of charged particles in a magnetic field with strict logic. I buried myself frantically in the most brutal mock exam papers from the best key schools across the country. Every question I solved correctly was a brick I laid for my own future. At the same time, it was a sharpened blade prepared to pierce Tang Mujiao's arrogance. Every night, I studied from 11 until 3 in the morning. Sweat soaked my shirt. A hard callus formed on my thumb from gripping the pen for too long. Drowsiness pressed heavily on my eyelids. But the moment I closed my eyes, the image of my father collapsing on the cold road appeared like a curse, forcing me awake. After finishing each set of papers, I carefully hid the perfect answers beneath my mattress. No one would see my true ability yet. I would continue wearing the mask of a student in decline. In Tang Mujiao's eyes, I was the perfect puppet. Time flowed by mercilessly. The countdown on the podium kept changing. 50 days, 30 days, 10 days. The closer the Gaokao drew, the more frenzied the atmosphere at school became. Students began tearing up books and notebooks, scattering white paper all over the schoolyard to release pressure. Tang Mujiao was the opposite. She seemed to feel no pressure at all. She frequently updated her social media with photos of herself drinking afternoon tea and shopping for designer bags. In the comment section, our flattering classmates rushed in to praise her. They called her a natural genius, someone who could pass easily without burying herself in books. Tang Mujiao calmly liked each comment, completely immersed in the false halo given to her by the system. She was certain that as long as she sat in the same exam room as me on that day, my score would automatically transfer onto her paper. The day before the exam, the school held a rally for the senior year students. Under the brightly decorated schoolyard flags, Tang Mujiao represented the outstanding students and went up to give a speech. She wore a carefully tailored uniform dress, her clear voice echoing through the loudspeakers. We have endured 12 years of hard study. Tomorrow is the moment we harvest the results. I believe that as long as we have enough confidence, the gates of Tsinghua and Peking University will open wide to welcome us. Thousands of students below applauded loudly, their eyes filled with admiration and longing as they looked at her. I stood submerged in the crowd, coldly watching this ridiculous performance. When Tang Mujiao stepped down from the stage, she deliberately passed by me. She tilted her head, leaned close to my ear, and whispered, "Wan Yu, tomorrow we'll be in the same exam room. Remember to use the pen I gave you. I'll wait for you at the gate of Tsinghua University." I raised my head and looked straight into her triumphant eyes. The corners of my lips curved into a gentle, obedient smile, exactly like the one I had worn over the past days. Of course, I will definitely bring it into the exam room. Every word I spoke sounded so sincere that no one could find fault with it. Tang Mujiao laughed lightly and walked away with arrogance. In early June, the day that would decide the fate of millions of students across the country finally arrived. Tense atmosphere covered every road leading to the Gaokao exam site. Long lines of parents crowded outside the school gate, every face carrying anxiety and expectation. My parents were not there. That morning before I left, my mother had pressed 2 boiled eggs and a steamed bun into my hand, symbolizing a perfect score. My father told me to stay calm and take the exam. When it was over, he would make sweet and sour ribs and wait for me at home. I did not need them to stand under the hot sun outside the school gate. In this life, I knew how to fight for myself. Carrying a transparent bag of school supplies, I walked through the security gate. Tang Mujiao appeared from a luxury car parked not far away. Today she wore a pure white one-piece dress, her hair softly curled and draped over one shoulder. She did not look as if she had come to take an exam. She looked like a princess about to step onto a stage to receive an award. As soon as she saw me, Tang Mujiao ran over and linked arms with me affectionately. "Zhenyu, is your mindset okay? I'm so nervous." She spoke coquettishly, but her sharp gaze swept across my transparent bag. When she saw the jade-green fountain pen lying neatly inside, the corner of her mouth immediately lifted in satisfaction. "I'm a little shaky, but I'll do my best." I lowered my head and played the role of a weak student carrying tremendous pressure to perfection. "Remember to use the pen I gave you. My lucky charm works very well. It will give you strength," Tang Mujiao said, winking as she patted my shoulder. Of course, I only brought this one pen into the exam room. I looked up and smiled back with utmost sincerity. The shrill bell signaling the start of the Chinese language exam rang. All candidates took their seats. Tang Mujiao sat diagonally across from me, 2 rows away. The proctor began breaking the seal on the exam papers and distributing draft paper. The exam room was so stifling that only the rustle of pages and the steady hum of the ceiling fan could be heard. I pulled out the jade-green fountain pen. Tang Mujiao's synchronization system was officially activated. Anything touched by this nib, every stroke and every piece of content, would instantly appear on her exam paper. For the reading comprehension section, I deliberately marked every trap question wrong. Then came the literary essay worth 60 points. The topic asked us to analyze youthful ambition and contribution to society. I curled my lip in a cold smile as the jade-green nib glided smoothly over the paper. Instead of writing touching, elegant prose, I began copying a scientific report on sow breeding techniques that I had memorized a month earlier. From the temperature of the pigpen, to how to mix corn feed, to the vaccination process for African swine fever, every sentence was logical and fluent, not missing a single comma. My youthful ambition at that moment was how to make sows reproduce at the highest possible efficiency. 2 rows away, Tang Mujiao rested her chin on one hand and looked out the window. Every now and then, she lowered her head to glance at her blank exam paper, which was automatically being filled with neat lines of writing. Because the system only synchronized handwriting and did not display the content directly inside her brain, she had no idea she was handing the graders a professional guide to raising pigs. Smug smile appeared on her lips from time to time. That afternoon came mathematics, the cruelest battlefield of the Gaokao. This year's math paper was extremely difficult. From the very first multiple choice questions, logical traps appeared everywhere. In the exam room, low sighs began to sound. Tang Mujiao flipped through the paper once, then calmly folded her arms and laid her head down to sleep. She trusted the system completely, or more accurately, she trusted my ability. I picked up the jade-green pen again. After calculating that the correct answer was I directly blackened in the wrong option. For the written solid geometry problem that asked us to prove 2 planes were perpendicular, I did not bother drawing the projection. I simply used the Pythagorean theorem for an ordinary triangle as proof. For the final key question, worth 14 points. The question meant to separate Tsinghua and Peking University candidates from the rest. I wrote a segment of C code whose function was to print the words system error on the screen. All of these garbage answers were transmitted in full to the exam paper of the school beauty, sleeping soundly nearby. After 90 minutes had passed, Tang Mujiao stretched and woke up. She picked up her exam paper to check it, seeing that it was covered in handwriting that looked exactly like her own. She folded it in satisfaction. Without bothering to examine the content, she boldly raised her hand and called the proctor. Teacher, I want to hand in my paper. The whole exam room was stunned. The math paper was so hard that many people had not even finished half of it. Yet she dared to submit 30 minutes early. The proctor frowned and came over. But he could not stop her under the exam rules. Tang Mujiao packed up her things and slung her backpack over her shoulder. When she passed my desk, she deliberately slowed down. Her gaze swept over my exam paper, filled with crossed-out lines, then stopped on my face, where I was pretending to sweat anxiously. She raised the corner of her mouth slightly, left me with a look of ultimate pity, and walked out proudly. Her white dress disappeared down the hallway. The exam room door closed behind her. Her play was over. Now, it was my turn to take the stage. I glanced at the clock on the wall. Exactly 28 minutes remained. I picked up the clear bottle of water, placed at the corner of my desk, while frantically turning over my draft paper. My elbow slammed hard into the bottle. Water spilled out and poured over the exam paper I had been writing. The jade-green ink immediately blurred and spread, ruining the barcode and the sealed name section. Shot to my feet. My face was pale, and my voice trembled with panic. Teacher, I accidentally spilled water. My exam paper is torn and the barcode is ruined. May I change to a new answer sheet? The proctor hurried over. Seeing that the soaked paper could not be saved, he sternly scolded me, but his hands moved quickly. He immediately went to retrieve a fresh spare answer sheet and handed it to me. There are less than 30 minutes left. Copy it again quickly. Be more careful with your hands next time. Thank you. Teacher. I lowered my head and answered repeatedly. The moment I received the new answer sheet, the connection of the synchronization system was completely cut off. It had already completed its task with Tang Mujiao's old exam paper, and she had already handed in her paper and left the room. The greatest flaw of the system was that it could not interfere after an exam paper had been sealed and submitted. I put the jade-green fountain pen deep inside my pencil case. My fingers touched the cheap black ballpoint pen I had bought outside the school gate. There was no more weakness, no more foolishness. My gaze turned cold and sharp, like a blade just drawn from its sheath. 25 minutes remained. An ordinary student could not recopy the entire mathematics paper in that time. But I was different. Tens of thousands of nights spent practicing problems had turned my brain into a calculation machine. My hand moved so fast across the paper that only after images seemed to remain. For the multiple choice section, I needed no draft paper and directly marked the answers. For solid geometry, I drew the correct 3 auxiliary lines and set up the coordinate system accurately down to the millimeter. Derivatives, integrals, formulas, everything flowed out like a spring. Skipping every unnecessary step, I wrote the shortest and most logical solutions. The bell ending the exam rang urgently. Set down my pen. Completing the final period of the last written question at the exact right moment. The paper was perfect, without a single blemish. I handed it to the proctor and calmly walked out of the exam room. The hot summer afternoon air rushed against my face, but inside I felt incredibly refreshed. The 2 days of the Gaokao passed exactly according to this script. For the integrated science exam, I used the jade-green pen to write a series of non-existent chemical reaction formulas and deliberately inserted meaningless terms. Tang Mujiao continued her performance of handing in papers early, strengthening her title as a study goddess. As for me, I continued changing answer sheets at the last minute and used my real ability to clean up the battlefield. On the afternoon of the final exam day, the school gate opened, and thousands of parents surged forward to meet their children. The scene was noisy and chaotic. During my backpack, I walked slowly along the tree-lined road. Right in front of the main gate, a crowd had gathered. Several reporters from the local television station were pointing microphones at a girl in a white dress. It was none other than Tang Mujiao. She stood at the center of the crowd, her smile bright as sunlight, her entire bearing brimming with confidence. Student, we heard that you were the first to hand in your paper for every exam. How would you evaluate this year's exam questions? A reporter asked enthusiastically. Tang Mujiao gently brushed her hair back, her arrogant tone ringing out clearly. There was nothing unexpected on this year's exam. The math paper had some difficulty in the final question, but I estimate I can score above 140. As for the Chinese essay, I am confident that my argument was very close to real life. My goal is Tsinghua University or Peking University. Sounds of admiration rose around her. She really is someone else's perfect child. Beautiful and smart. With confidence like that, she must be the top scorer. I stood mixed in with the crowd, watching her performance coldly. Her essay was very close to real life. That was true. Zhao breeding techniques were indeed very practical in agriculture. Tang Mujiao's gaze drifted and accidentally met mine. She lifted her chin slightly and smirked, a smile filled with contempt and pity. Then, she raised her hand and silently mouthed 3 words. Thank you. Fool. I was not angry. I merely lifted the corner of my lips and returned a faint smile. Then I turned and walked away. Enjoy this false radiance while you can, Tang Mujiao. The higher you fly, the harder you fall. And this time, there would be no road back for her. Seven's net may be wide, but nothing truly escapes it. I had personally lit the fuse. Now, I only needed to wait calmly for the day The results were announced, and watch her be devoured by her own system. In this life and death game, the one who ended with nothing would definitely not be me. The half-month spent waiting for the Gaokao results felt endlessly long to many people. But for me, it passed in absolute peace and silence. Tidied up my books. During the day, I helped my parents knead dough for noodles. At night, I lay down and slept deeply. There were no more sleepless nights solving exam problems, and no more acting in front of anyone. In contrast to my quiet life, Tang Mujiao was extremely active on social media. Her feed was updated with new photos every day. Today, she posted pictures of herself drinking afternoon tea at a luxury hotel. Tomorrow, she posted photos of limited edition designer bags. Attached to them were always smug captions. Waiting for the day I pack my suitcase for the capital, Tsinghua or Peking University. What a headache to choose. Under those posts, our flattering classmates rushed in to comment. The eldest young lady really knows how to make people jealous. You'll definitely get into Tsinghua. Study goddess shines wherever she goes. When you become famous in the capital, don't forget us. Study committee representative even specially tagged Tang Mujiao in the class group chat. Everyone, get ready for Mujiao's top scorer celebration banquet. I heard the principal has already prepared the congratulatory banner. Tang Mujiao sent a modest sticker in the group. Don't say that. What if I slipped up on a few questions? What if Wan Yu scores higher than me? C deliberately dragged me in to serve as her backdrop. Immediately, those people jumped in to echo her. Sanyu. When she came out after the exam, her face was deathly pale. She probably slipped again. She's a bookworm. But her study method is wrong. How can she compare with Mujiao's talent? I looked at the phone screen, locked it, and tossed it aside. The higher she climbed, the more painful the fall. Let her hang on the 9th layer of clouds a little longer. Only a few hours remained before the ladder holding her up would be pulled away. At 8 o'clock, on the evening of June 23rd, the official score checking system opened. The atmosphere inside my family's tiny rental room was stretched tight like a bowstring. My father washed his hands carefully with soap 3 times before daring to sit in front of the old computer borrowed from our landlord. My mother stood behind him, her hands tightly clasped together, constantly murmuring prayers. Sanyu, read your exam number to Dad. My father's voice trembled. I walked over and read each digit clearly. With his rough fingers, my father tapped the keyboard 1 key at a time. When he pressed search, a loading circle immediately appeared on the computer screen. Because too many people across the province were accessing the site, the webpage was jammed. The circle kept spinning endlessly. Every second that passed was torture for my parents. Looking at my father's gray-streaked hair and my mother's thin shoulders, I pressed my lips together. In my previous life, it was at this exact moment that the announcement canceling my exam qualification appeared like a fatal blow, pushing my entire family into the deepest abyss of despair. My father smashed the keyboard. My mother cried until she fainted. As for me, I could only cover my face and tremble in unbearable injustice. But in this life, everything was different. It's out. It's out. My father suddenly shouted, his voice breaking with emotion. My mother rushed forward, staring hard at the screen. I also took a step closer. Under the personal information for Gu Wanyu, a bright red score report appeared clearly. Chinese, 4tum bormithan. Mathematics, morchum femli. Foreign language, mortum bornizum. Integrated science, t-tum temizum. Total score, fin temithum. Provincial rank, mod. The room fell into dead silence for 5 full seconds. My father gaped, rubbing his eyes again and again as if afraid he had seen wrong. My mother covered her mouth with both hands. Tears poured from her eyes, and streamed down her weathered face. 725 points. Top scorer. My Wanyu is the top scorer in the entire province. My mother cried out, sobbing as she turned and hugged me tightly. My father slammed his hand hard on the table, stood up and laughed loudly. Tears also streamed down his cheeks. He patted my shoulder with force. Well done. My daughter is amazing. Our ancestors have blessed us. Our family won't have to suffer anymore in this life. I wrapped my arms around my parents and rubbed my chin against my mother's worn sweater. Sense of relief spread through my whole body, driving away the cold nightmares of my previous life completely. I told you. I would definitely bring home Tsinghua's admission notice for you. Smiled. And tears fell with it. Just as my family was immersed in happiness. The phone on the bed suddenly lit up, again and again. Message alerts from the class group rang out rapidly, like machine gun fire. I comforted my parents, picked up the phone, and unlocked it. The class group chat had exploded. But it was not full of congratulatory praise for Tang Mujiao as I had expected. Instead, it was filled with question marks and terror. Oh my god, what is happening? Someone just posted Mujiao's score report on the school forum. It has to be edited, right? How could this happen? I just asked my cousin who works at the education bureau to check. It's real. The exam number and ID number match completely. Bellow. The panicked messages was an enlarged screenshot. I tapped it open. Tang Mujiao's score report appeared before me in vivid clarity. Chinese. Haidi. Mathematics. Mihai. Foreign language. Fizum. Integrated science. Zone. Total score. 45. It was a record-breakingly low score. So low it seemed to punch through the bottom of absurdity. See, even randomly filling in multiple-choice answers should not have produced a total score this humiliating. In the group chat, the class monitor began speaking. Impossible. Mujiao always scored over 140 in math on mock exams. How did she get 12 on the real exam? Everyone, go look at the school forum. Someone posted scans of her written answers too. In Chinese, she wrote about the process of breeding sows. In math, she wrote computer code and nonsense. She wrote about pigs. Is she crazy? She really is crazy. She got 47 points. Yet she posted pictures of herself eating and shopping every day. So confident about getting into Tsinghua. This is too embarrassing. I feel ashamed just looking at it. The wind had changed direction. Same people who had praised her to the clouds yesterday now saw her fall into the mud and immediately stomped on her a few more times to cut ties. That was the power of public opinion. When you stood high above others, they worshipped you as a saint. But when you were filthy and disheveled, they treated you like trash. The phone in my hand suddenly vibrated violently. An incoming call appeared on the screen. The name displayed was Tang Mujiao. I raised the corner of my mouth, slowly pressed answer, turned on speakerphone, and placed the phone on the table. Gu Wanyu. A shrill scream burst from the other end of the line, sharp as fingernails scraping glass. Sweet and gentle voice of the school beauty had completely vanished. In its place was madness, shrieking, and loss of control. What the hell did you do? Why did my score turn out like this? Why 47 points? She screamed, followed by the clatter of bowls and plates breaking on her side. You deliberately wrote nonsense to hurt me, didn't you? This venomous snake had been driven by rage until she could no longer keep her disguise. Crude words poured from her mouth. My parents looked over in shock. I raised my hand to signal that they should not worry, then answered slowly in a cold, emotionless voice. What are you talking about, Mujiao? I took my exam and you took yours. Scores depend on each person's ability. Why are you blaming me? Stop pretending. That pen, I clearly gave you that pen. The system reported that it was successfully activated. Why was my paper full of worthless trash? Why were there sows? Why was there code? She lost control so completely that she exposed the entire dirty truth herself. I laughed softly. The sound was light, yet full of contempt. You mean that jade-green fountain pen? Sorry. In the exam room, I accidentally spilled water. The paper was soaked and blurred. So I had to ask the proctor to change it for a new sheet. While I was at it, I switched to a ballpoint pen so I could write faster. You were probably sleeping too soundly with your head on the desk to notice. What a pity. The other end of the line suddenly fell silent, only heavy. Choked breathing remained, like someone drowning. Tang Mujiao had realized the problem. She had handed in her paper too early. While I overturned the game at the 89th minute, her excessive confidence and bone-deep laziness had dug the grave that buried her. You knew from the beginning. You deliberately acted to trick me. Tang Mujiao's voice trembled, filled with extreme panic. That's right. I decisively severed her last thread of hope. If you want to steal someone else's life, you have to be prepared to be strangled by your own hands. Tang Mujiao. Today's ending is a reward you deserve for being a parasite who only knows how to cling to others and feed off them. I will make you pay terribly. Gu Wanyu, I won't let you go. You ruined Mei. She smashed things wildly. Her desperate screams rang out. The one who ruined you was yourself. If you had been willing to pick up a pen and take the exam by yourself, at least you wouldn't have set a record of 47 points. Take your time enjoying the consequences. I decisively hung up. The mad sounds were instantly cut off. The room returned to silence. That very night, my score report as the provincial top scorer was widely reported by local media. Story of a poor girl whose parents sold late-night noodles, yet who relied on extraordinary perseverance to rise and score 17 points, became the hottest topic online. People began comparing me to Tang Mujiao. One was a symbol of effort and upward struggle. The other was a joke of hypocrisy and arrogance. Netizens kept digging up Tang Mujiao's past bragging posts and mocking them. Look at the 47-point study goddess busy choosing between Tsinghua and Peking University. She personally handed the Gaokao graders a breeding procedure. Her nerves. Nerves must really have a problem. The online abuse. The very weapon she had once used to push me into a dead end in my previous life. Now rained down on her head, like tens of thousands of invisible knives. Neighbors pointed. Friends rejected her. Relatives turned away. Most importantly, Tang Mujiao's synchronization system began its backlash process. It was a system built on stealing other people's luck and intelligence. When the mission failed disastrously, it would immediately drain the host vitality to compensate. Within 3 short days, news reached me through the class monitor, and it made many people shiver. Tang Mujiao had completely broken down. She locked herself in a dark room and did not dare turn on the lights. Whenever she saw anything shaped like a pen, she screamed in terror, muttering meaningless words over and over. I stood on the balcony of our rental building and looked up at the star-filled night sky. Summer wind brushed past, carrying a cool, clean scent. I had finally smashed the shackles of fate with my own hands. Fairness did not appear on its own. Fairness was something I had seized back from the abyss of despair. A broad road of light was waiting in front of me. News of Tang Mujiao's collapse spread at astonishing speed among the students. No one did not know about the former arrogant school beauty's record score of 47. But what people discussed even more was her current miserable condition. The synchronization system was not a free toy. It followed an extremely harsh rule of equal exchange. When the host borrowed the system's power to steal someone else's halo and fortune, the host had to pay with her own vitality. If the mission failed, Tang Mujiao had not only failed, she had also drawn the fury and contempt of countless people online. That huge amount of karmic backlash immediately triggered the system's retaliation mechanism. The class monitor sent a message to the group chat, describing the scene she had accidentally witnessed at the city hospital. Tang Mujiao was screaming like a madwoman, grabbing anyone in a white coat, and asking whether they had any way to remove a system from her head. Her hair had fallen out in clumps, exposing patches of pale scalp. Her 18-year-old skin, once smooth and full of vitality, was now wrinkled and dark, as if all life had been drained from it. Her large round eyes, which she had once used to charm others, were now cloudy, ringed with darkness, and bulging with panic. The psychiatrists had to use a high dose of sedatives before forcing her into sleep. After hearing those details, I only calmly turned off my phone screen. What a person plants, they eventually harvest. In my previous life, when I had been forced to the end of the road and thrown myself into the rushing water, she had stood at the peak of glory and laughed at me for being weak. In this life, the price she paid was still far too cheap compared with what my family had endured. 1 week after the Gaokao results were announced, an expensive car suddenly appeared outside the shabby, crumbling rental area where my family lived. The smooth sound of the engine was completely out of place in the narrow alley that smelled of damp mold. I was sitting in front of the house, picking water spinach for dinner, when the rusty iron gate was suddenly shoved open. Tang Mujiao's mother, staggered inside. The proud, elegant bearing she usually carried as a rich madam had vanished completely. Her clothes were disheveled, and her swollen eyes were red. Behind her came Mr. Tang, his face pale as he forcefully dragged a girl whose head was covered by a black coat. That girl was Tang Mujiao. My parents came out of the kitchen, shocked as they looked at the uninvited visitors. My father wiped his hands on the towel at his waist and stepped forward to shield me. "So are you looking for?" my father asked warily. Tang Mujiao's mother did not answer him. She rushed straight toward me. Her hands, covered in diamond rings, gripped my shoulders tightly, her nails digging hard into the fabric of my short-sleeved shirt. "Senyu, Auntie is begging you. I know you are a good child. You and my Mujiao are best friends, aren't you? Save her," she cried out, her voice hoarse with despair. I looked coldly down at her trembling hands and frowned slightly. "Let go of me first. If there is something to say, stand properly and say it." I firmly shook off her hands and took a step back to keep my distance. My cold attitude left her stunned. In her memory, Gu Wanyu was only a poor, lowly girl who always lowered her head, said yes to everything, and followed her daughter around to gain a few benefits. But the person standing before her now radiated an overwhelming presence. Calm to the point of being frightening, Mr. Tang pulled his daughter forward and tried to force out the ugliest strained smile in the world. "Sanyu, Uncle knows your top score result is deserved. But right now, Mujiao is being attacked badly online. Her future is basically ruined. Uncle only asks one thing of you. Please, post a clarification online, saying that during the Gaokao, you accidentally mixed one of your messy draft sheets into Mujiao's exam paper. Say that. Because the child was under too much pressure, she copied it by mistake. As long as you take the blame, public opinion will let my daughter go." He took a breath, removed a bank card from his briefcase, and placed it on our chipped plastic table. "There is 500,000 yuan in this card. It is enough for your family to buy a small apartment. Your parents will no longer have to sell noodles late at night. You are the provincial top scorer. School and the Education Bureau will protect you. But my Mujiao cannot bear it anymore. Help Uncle. All right. 500,000 yuan. To buy the innocence of a provincial top scorer. What a perfect calculation." I looked at the shiny bank card on the table. The corner of my lips slowly curved, and a cold laugh escaped me. My parents stood behind me, so angry their breathing grew heavy. My father was about to step forward and loudly chase them out. But I raised my hand and stopped him. I will handle this myself. Uncle Tang. Auntie Tang. Spoke each word clearly. My volume was not loud, but it was sharp as a knife. Do you understand the rules of the Gaokao? Inside the exam room, 3 surveillance cameras record everything without blind spots. Proctors walk around constantly. How exactly did I pass a draft sheet to your daughter? By turning invisible, or by using magic? The faces of the Tang couple stiffened. Of course they knew this excuse was absurd and full of holes. But it was the only life raft they could cling to right now to whitewash their precious daughter. Just say, it got mixed up when the papers were handed in. You are so smart. You will definitely find a reasonable explanation. Tang Mujiao's mother continued desperately, her eyes filled with humble pleading. So, being smart means I must use that intelligence to cover another person's stupidity. I withdrew my smile. My icy gaze stabbed straight at them. Your 500,000 yuan is impressive, isn't it? You want to use this money to bribe the provincial top scorer, deceive public opinion, and deceive the Education Bureau. Do you know that this behavior is enough to constitute bribery and obstruction? I only need to make one phone call to the police, and tomorrow Mr. Tang's company will immediately be investigated. The words police and investigated. Mr. Tang jolted in fright. He hurriedly grabbed the bank card and shoved it back into his bag, beads of sweat appearing on his forehead. At that moment, Tang Mujiao, who had been shrinking under the black coat, suddenly struggled free from her father's grip. The setting sun struck her face, making my mother step back in fright. That face was haggard and gray. Her sunken eyes were threaded with bright red blood vessels. She pointed straight at my face and screamed madly. It was you. You were the one who hurt me. You deliberately wrote those breeding things, so the system would transfer them to my paper. You knew there was something wrong with that pen. Mr. Tang panicked and quickly covered his daughter's mouth. Then he turned to me with a forced laugh. Don't take it to heart. She is too agitated and has started having delusions. She talks about pens and systems all day. I folded my arms across my chest and stepped forward, directly facing Tang Mujiao's terrified eyes. That's right, I knew. I smirked and lowered my voice so only she could hear. The jade-green pen was very beautiful. But my handwriting, my intelligence, and my score were never things you could swallow. Today's ending is you lifting a stone and smashing your own foot. How does it feel to be abandoned by your system? Tang Mujiao's pupils contracted to the extreme. Her mouth fell open. Her whole body trembled violently, as if shocked by electricity. At last, she understood. From the moment she handed that pen to me, I had already seen through her entire filthy scheme. The mock exams, the clumsy problem solving, my obedient attitude, all of it had been one perfect performance. I had personally woven a giant net, waited patiently for her to step into it with her arrogance, then tightened it without leaving a single gap. Tang Mujiao clutched her head and let out a miserable scream. There is a ghost. She is a ghost. Mom, Dad, save May. She stole my points. She lost control, struggling and scratching at her own parents. Her mother cried bitterly and held her mentally broken daughter tightly. The chaotic, tragic scene was so unpleasant to watch. I stepped back and coldly gave the order to leave. Uncle, Auntie, take your daughter home and get her treatment. Do not come here to disturb my family again. Your daughter knows better than anyone what she did. My parents still need to rest. We won't see you out. I turned and walked into the house. My father stepped out and slammed the rusty iron gate shut. The wailing cries of their family were completely blocked outside. My world returned to the quiet and clarity it should have had. I did not feel wildly pleased, nor did I feel insane joy. All that remained in my heart was a strange calm. The heavy stone pressing on my chest, since the moment I came back to life, had finally been crushed. Those dark days had fallen behind me, forever buried along with the name Tang Mujiao. It's about a week after that chaotic visit, on a bright sunny morning, the familiar ringing of a bicycle bell came from the entrance of the alley. Postal worker, in a green uniform, stopped in front of our door. Sweat covered his face, but he wore an extremely bright smile. He lifted a courier envelope high in his hand, his voice echoing through the whole neighborhood. Yu, your Tsinghua University admission letter is here. Come sign for it, young lady. That shout exploded like a bomb of happiness in our poor rental neighborhood. The neighbors opened their doors one after another and poked their heads out to look. So, the eyes that had once been indifferent and cold were now full of admiration and respect. I hurried to the door. My parents abandoned the pot of broth boiling on the stove and rushed out after me. With slightly trembling hands, I signed for the package. The envelope was deep red, thick, and carried the fresh scent of paper. The gilded national emblem glittered brilliantly under the dazzling sunlight. I turned around and handed the letter to my parents with both hands. Dad, Mom, I did it. Tsinghua has sent my admission letter. My father took the envelope. His rough, cracked hands, still dusted with flour, carefully stroked each corner of the letter, as if afraid of damaging it. Tears fell from his eyes again. This time, they were tears of absolute pride. Good. My Wanyu is amazing. His voice choked until he could hardly speak. My mother hugged me tightly and cried in waves. She patted my back and repeatedly thanked heaven and the gods. Looking at their overflowing happiness, I knew that my decision to grit my teeth, endure, and pretend for those 100 days had been completely worth it. That evening, my family did not go out to sell noodles. My father bought a large carp and made my favorite steamed fish with soy sauce. My mother cooked the most abundant meal we had ever had. Under the flickering fluorescent light of our rental room, laughter rang out without stopping. The red letter was respectfully placed into a glass frame and set in the most visible spot in the home. Summer vacation passed quickly. September arrived, carrying a cool autumn breeze. I pulled my worn old suitcase, wore a simple white shirt, and stepped onto the high-speed train, heading for the capital. Through the window, the scenery flashed past my eyes: tall buildings, golden rice fields, everything bright and full of life. My phone vibrated softly. My father sent a message saying that he and my mother had already cleaned up the noodle cart. Next month, they planned to use my scholarship together with their savings to rent a small storefront and open a proper eatery, so they would no longer have to stay up late, rise before dawn, or run from the urban management officers. I smiled and quickly typed back, Dad, Mom, please take care of your health. I will study hard. After putting the phone into my pocket, I leaned my head against the seat and closed my eyes, enjoying a feeling of absolute freedom. There was no system, no betrayal, and no choking injustice. Before me stood the solemn gate of the country's top university, and a vast, open life I would draw with my own true ability. Sky outside was so blue, and the light was so bright.